You have something to say? You have something you want to say? So you and me are going to make another video today because mommy's got to work. Yep. Welcome back, Finn, everyone. And today we're talking about the new Concealed Carry Reciprocity Bill, the movement for Concealed Carry Reciprocity. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what those words mean, if you're new here, you're just Googling things, that means that we have an inalienable right to self-defense in this country. But many states feel as though they need to restrict that right to people who have jumped through their individual hoops or can only do so if they live within the confines of their state and have gone through their individual requirements. The concept is we have an inalienable right to self-defense, and just because I cross some imaginary line on a map somewhere does not mean that my right suddenly ends because I went from my state of Ohio to Michigan or something like that. So this bill seeks to make that no longer a problem. Oh yes, you like not making that a problem anymore either, right? Here's the thing. There are many bills in the running, and one has been submitted on the very first day of the new Congress, and I don't like it. I'm not going to mince my words. I don't like this bill at all. It is an imperfect bill, and hopefully in today's video, I will be able to explain to you why you shouldn't like it either, how it could be changed, but then also, comma pause for effect, why you should get behind it. That and more after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by 1st Phorm. And there's always a question if you're one of those people like me that buys supplements, whether it's a protein supplement, pre-workout, or whether you just want an energy drink or something like that. Are these dollars going to some woke corporation somewhere? Well, 1st Phorm is one of us. They're a pro-freedom supplement company, and their whole thing is improving people's nutrition. So their big thing is protein, and my favorite product of theirs is their meat stick. They make these things very flavorful, and they're like a 20 gram of protein stick that doesn't need to be refrigerated. You can throw them in your bag. Think jerky, but not super stinky. Like my wife will actually let me be around her after I've eaten one of them, and I wouldn't have a problem giving a piece of it to Finn over there either. I will have a link listed in the pinned comment down below and on the Linktree and affiliates page. Do me a favor and just go browse their wares, use that link, and it lets them know that I sent you there, and that helps the channel out. So special thanks to 1st Phorm for making today's video possible. That lasted long. The bill was introduced Friday as H.R. 38 and is named H.R. 38 to amend Title 18 United States Code to provide a means by which non-residents of a state whose residents may carry concealed firearms may also do so in the state. Bleh. You see why we've shortened it to Concealed Carry Reciprocity, right? Here's the thing. This bill has been introduced previously, and while we do not have the actual text at this time, and we'll do a follow-up video for you guys once we have the actual text, we know who submitted the bill, and we know what they've submitted previously. And the reason we don't have the text is it just isn't published yet. This is hot off the press. It should be ready sometime, probably this week sometime, and again, we'll follow up, but based on what this person has submitted before and all that, and their statements, we kind of know what's going to be in it and what it's going to look like, and then we'll make amendments from there. So this was initially introduced as the Bipartisan Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, and in December of 2017, the bill in question was brought to the House and passed at 231 to 198. And then it was not taken up by the Senate. So that's where the bill died back then. So there is broad support for this. Let's not mince our words here. This has a pretty good shot of going. It was introduced by U.S. Representative Richard Hudson out of South Carolina, and the current proposal has 108 co-sponsors, which is a lot of co-sponsors, all right? Usually you have a couple co-sponsors, maybe 10, not 108. Everybody wants a piece of this one. So again, this is going off of the previous version of the bill. The way this is supposed to work, let's say, for instance, in your state, you have a permitting system. You can now carry, if you meet the requirements of your state, you can carry in other places that would not typically recognize your permit. So I, as an Ohio resident, have a concealed carry permit, and should this bill become law, as we expect that it will be written, I will be able to carry that weapon into New York, Illinois, and California. And I know that that just wadded up a whole lot of panties out there, but that's a discussion we can have another day. The problems for me, first of all, are that it requires a permit whatsoever. Okay, let me put it this way. If it was 10 years ago, this would not be as an effective bill as it is today, because pretty much with the Bruin situation, it has changed the right to lawful self-defense by carrying a firearm from the may issue to the shall issue persuasion, right? So pretty much they have to give you a permit at this point in time. So if there is a scheme in place for you to get a permit in a state, then you can carry there. I understand the direction that they're going for, which is, hey, we have driver's licenses. If I go to the state of California, it is not required for me to take an additional driving test to be able to drive there. It is just assumed that the state of Ohio can teach people how to drive. And therefore, when I get there, while there may be some tweaks to the law and the various behavior there, like some states you can't turn right on red, you know, that sort of thing. Some states U-turns are cool, and other states they are absolutely prohibited. You see what I'm saying? While there are certain tweaks there, you should be able to be assumed that you can do this there. I got a problem with that on its face, which is the concept of needing a permit to exercise a God-given, inalienable right that is enshrined and protected in our Constitution. Literally the second thing that they wrote, next to you can speak without being thrown in prison. The laws of that state apply. Now, this is sort of kind of the thing with the reciprocity that exists. Like, for instance, in the state of Ohio, I can't drink a single drop of alcohol and carry a weapon. But there are some other states where it's based on similar to the driving legal limits, where as long as you're below the ability to drive, you can carry a weapon. So I guess I understand the direction that they're going, but the concept of building this around the underlying concept of a driver's license, which is a privilege to drive, not a right to drive, I got real problems with. Now, to add into that, if there is a constitutional carry state, like for instance, my state of Ohio passed constitutional carry this past year, and the way that they did it basically was they line itemed a few things in the current code to basically say, hey, if you meet these arbitrary requirements of not having a violent record, you meet the minimum age, those sort of things, then you can carry within the confines of the state. And you can carry, like, for instance, we can go to like West Virginia and Indiana, and Kentucky, but like Michigan is a no-go, right? For instance, if you don't have your permit. And I think that that provision right there is actually what saves the bill for me, because ultimately what that means is that every state that has any iota of interest for its citizens is going to become a constitutional carry state. So give it some time, I suppose, is the message there. The reason I have a problem with the permit and the underlying laws thing, I understand the respecting of states' rights thing, right? There will be locales, and you can name them right off the top of your head, that will make it so complicated for their own citizens that the people visiting the state are going to take a look at it and be like, wow, that sucks. I'm just going to not take an associate's degree level of education to figure out what I can and cannot do while I'm in the state of California for a week. You see what I'm saying? I feel as though the way the bill is currently written, or that we expect that it will be written, it will be abused by those locales. And I think there's a very simple way to fix that. And this is what we need in the bill. There needs, and this is going to sound really bad, there needs to be a federal minimum standard. And that is, hey, you can do all of these things in any state as per this provision. As in, these sorts of things cannot be prohibited. These sort of things can be prohibited. Ugh. You see what I'm saying? There needs to be some kind of uniform standard that is set. And I know what I would like that standard to be, which is hands off. But I am also under no illusion that that would just simply not work. I understand that adding something like this ultimately complicates the vote, but if they don't put something like that in there, it's like the original argument for the Bill of Rights, for instance. There was an argument on one side was like, hey, put the Bill of Rights in there, and the other side was like, no, we shouldn't put the Bill of Rights in there, because if you put the Bill of Rights in there, then it'll be like, these are all the rights that you have, and we want to limit the government, not limit the citizens. And then the other side was, well, if you don't put the Bill of Rights in there, then you'll have nothing. And we see how that argument ultimately ended up panning out, right? So if they don't put something like that in there, this will absolutely be abused. And I guess I'm a little bit over time, but what I want to close this with is, we should ultimately be for this, even if it is imperfect, because now is a time to get something like this, even if it isn't 100%. And I say this from experience because I was just beginning my self-defense journey when the whole discussion of concealed carry and permitting was coming up, right? And we as Ohioans accepted an imperfect law. It was terrible. You could do like nothing, basically. And then over time, we amended that law. And now I would argue that the Ohio law for concealed carry is almost the gold standard. There's a few problems with it, but other than that, we've hammered a lot of the kinks out, and it's pretty awesome here when it comes to defending yourself. So I am willing to, even though I don't like the way that this is being done, I'm willing to accept it, and then we can broaden it in a good way later. But get it there, get it working, because ultimately, when you start putting restrictions on things and you have conflicts of interest between states and things like that, ultimately, what ends up happening there is it's like, this is way too complicated. We're expending way too much manpower to do it this way. And usually those kind of restrictions get nerfed quite a bit because it's just too complicated to enforce. And things even themselves out over time. So I guess in closing, while I don't like it, I think we ought to go for it. I want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Hey, not saying bye? Oh, he's out cold. Not even close. All right, we'll see you guys on another future video here at the VSO Gun Channel. Thanks for tuning in.